Thanks for joining us on episode 1605 of the Inspired Stewardship Podcast.
Hi, I'm Dr. Len Lopez, and I challenge you to invest in yourself, invest in others, develop your influence, and impact the world by using your time, your talent, and your treasures to live out your calling. Having the ability to recognize that you need to take small steps every day is key. And one way to be inspired is to listen to the Inspired Stewardship Podcast with my friend Scott Mater. If you're looking for the magic genie to help you, 5 steps isn't going to do it. It's like anything else. You need to take some steps yourself. And so if you can at least take account of yourself, and here's the analogy I like to share with people. Corporations, the way they track their successes, they'll track revenue, profits, and sales.
Welcome, and thank you for joining us on the Inspired Stewardship Podcast. If you truly desire to become the person who God wants you to be, then you must learn to use your time, your talent, and your treasures for your true calling. In the Inspired Stewardship Podcast, you will learn to invest in yourself, invest in others, and develop your influence so that you can impact the world.
In this podcast episode, I interview Dr. Len Lopez. I asked Len about his unique 5-step method. Len also shares with you why his 5 steps method came to be. And I also asked Len to share with you practical advice on getting unstuck. I have a great book that's been out for a while now called Inspired Living. Assemble the puzzle of your calling by mastering your time, your talent, and your treasures. You can find out more about that book over at inspiredlivingbook.com. It'll take you to a page where there's information and you can sign up to get some mailings about it as well as purchase a copy there. I'd love to see you get a copy and share with me how it impacted your world. Nutrition and fitness expert Dr. Len Lopez is the creator of 5 Steps a Day, a unique to-do list to help improve your habits and attitude by tracking how you feed body, mind, and spirit. Every day, you shade in one or all 5 steps for the action you took and tap into your visual and kinesthetic learning centers to help anchor those better habits and attitude. If you're already tracking your physical steps or closing your rings for your physical body, this will be easy. But shouldn't you also be asking, what am I doing for my mind and my spirit? Welcome to the show, Len.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Scott. Thank you for inviting me today.
Absolutely. I'm happy to have you here. So I talked a little bit in the intro about some of the work you've done, but I also know from talking to you, it's not anywhere close to everything you've done, but working with the 5 steps a day. We're going to talk more about that as we go. But I also think of intros as sort of like Instagram photos. They never really show the whole story. They just show part of the frame or part of the story, and there's always more to it. So take us back in time a little bit and share a little bit about your journey and what have you gone through and why is this kind of the message you're putting out into the world?
Okay, let's see where I can start. This is kind of because right now I'm kind of the older guy. I'm not going to say old anymore. I'm the older guy with young kids, but I can see my kids that are going to they're finished out their last years of high school. And so their preparation as far as what they're going to want to do when they get older. And I remember when I was in private practice, so many people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s, and I'll go further with that, they still wouldn't know what the heck they were trying to do. They just ended up where they're at without that wasn't the real goal for some people. And so for mine, my journey has gone from, I started out in college, wanted to go pre-med, pharmacy and everything. And then after like the first semester, I thought that I can't memorize all this stuff. And so I got out of that and got into the business and I enjoyed the business studies out there because it took a lot of thinking and thought, what's going to provoke you to like this gene, this car, this bike. So I spent the next 10 years doing that, had my ups and downs, got out of college, had some great successes in my early years, was in business for a while with my brothers, lost my business in my house with my brothers, and they did too. but became an actor for a couple of years. And I guess all before that started, I had broken my back playing ball. And so one thing that the only guy that really helped me with is one chiropractor. And so that kind of got me back in there about 12 years later. So 32, I entered chiropractic school, and, I came out just because I met some people that were very helpful, and they helped me also understand it's not just getting the body physically working, but also the whole nutrition aspect of it. And I was into sports, so sports medicine, nutrition. I was doing that for about 20 years or so, and everything was going good. Had some successes, started manufacturing nutritional products and everything, invented a fitness product, started selling that, had my headache with partnerships and everything. But it was to do what I was teaching my patients how to get healthier. I always tell them that, there's every week you're going to have an opportunity to take 21 steps forward to better health, right? 3 meals a day, 7 days a week. And that's kind of how I evolved to where I finally got in the last couple of years to 5 steps a day, which is something, the new thing I'm trying to do, not just help people with helping the physical body, but also help them recognize how important it is to feed your mind and, most importantly, feed your spirit.
We'll definitely talk more about that as we go. But I want to ask you a question, because you just talked about, kind of seeing your kids and them not necessarily knowing what they want to be. And then you coming across folks that didn't want to know what they wanted to be. But then with your own journey, you started with kind of a medicine idea and that kind, then went into business, but then came back to medical in a different way, but still that idea of medical and helping people. What do you think it was about your journey that kind of caused you to bounce between those things instead of, quote, take a straight line through from one to the other?
Well, it's funny because I've talked to my kids' friends, and some of them already seem to know what they want to do,
By the way, they're probably wrong, but they know.
yeah. They'll probably start off in direction A, but then they'll end in direction C, because just like myself. But yeah, so many people. I mean, there's some people, for a perfect example, people who want to become pilots. I think people that want to become pilots, they know that by the time they're like 10 or 12 years old. They just say, gosh, they look up in the air, they see that, they get on an airplane, they just say, this is what I want to do. Others, want to be policemen, they want to go in the military, they want to do whatever. And I talking with my patients over those years, I just knew that very successful people would sit across from me in my office and everything, and they would just humbly, and they might be in there to fix a hurt shoulder, a hurt knee, hurt this, or various other health issues, but then they didn't let some of the emotional stuff out, and sometimes they just really didn't realize that they were, I'm married now, I have kids, I have a mortgage, and I'm doing this job, and this really wasn't the thing I really wanted to do, but I feel like I'm stuck here. And so it just learning that, understanding that, seeing that because, when you talk to your friends, you never get in those kind of conversations typically. And as far as saying, I feel like I'm stuck somewhere. I'm not sure where I'm going and everything. They're just going with the flow and everything. And so I see myself with trying to guide my kids, and just like, hey, I know you may not know what you want to do, but I think you still need to get your education. And as I always joke around, when I wrote a teen version of 5 Steps, and I talk about, after your 18th birthday, now you got to decide, what do you want to do? You're going to join the military, go join the zoo, join a band, go overseas. What are you going to do after your 18th birthday? Because your first 18 years of life are pretty well scripted out for you here.
Mm-hmm. Usually, I think for most of us, your journey is more typical, where it's not necessarily a straight line until we look back at it, and then we start seeing, we see how dots connect looking backwards, not looking forwards, or at least that seems to be the route most of us take.
So, I like your analogy where it's not a straight line.
it's never a straight line. So when you think about it, one of the things you mentioned is kind of taking care of your spiritual life. And that's one of the things I like to emphasize on the show, is sort of how our faith walk, our spiritual walk, whatever it is, affects our life journey, and then how our life journey affects our spiritual development and our faith walk. So share a little bit about how that has played out for you, what that journey has been part of for your life.
Well, I was raised in your typical Hispanic Catholic home, I guess, for lack of a better analogy, is that, and I joke about it now when I would talk. I would say, every Sunday on our way to church and everything, we'd stop by, pick up Jesus on the way to church, had to get to church, an hour later come back, drop him off, and we really wouldn't ever think or hear about him again until next Sunday when we went to go pick him up again. But it wasn't until, when I got through high school, I started scratching my head, because here I know there's a God and everything. I was told that by my family and my friends and everything when I was a teenager. But then I'm opening the books in school, and it's showing me pictures of Cro-Magnon and Neanderthal man, and saying, it's evolution. So that had me just kind of bouncing back and forth a bit. Hey, how can these both be right? I didn't understand that. And it really wasn't until a few years later, at the end of my college career, in fact, it was a girlfriend. She got me to start. She told me some stories about that were in the Bible. Are you telling me that David and Goliath story, that's a biblical story? I had no idea. I thought that was like, fairy tale, like Pinocchio and stuff like that. She goes, no, same thing with Jonah and the well. That's a true story. I thought that was another one of those, dragon slayer type stories and everything. And so to her credit and everything, is that it stirred me to open up, and I got a college Bible, one of the paraphrased college Bibles, and I think I devoured that in like less than 4 months, just reading the whole thing. And it's just like, and that really started my journey to want to start walking with him. And like your typical Christian and new believer, sometimes I'm happy to be walking with him. Then other times I'm like, no, go over there. I don't want you right now. I want to walk. I want to lead by my own volition and everything. But that was just learning more again, reading more, understanding more. So I've had my ups and downs, highs and lows, and there's been some other professionals that have helped me get into understanding that the importance of having him as your number one guidance in your life.
So you talk about the 5 steps a day, and STEPS is an acronym, of course. So walk us through those. What are the 5 steps a day? Kind of how did you arrive at them, and how do those apply to folks?
Okay, great question. Well, 5 steps it's an acronym. The word STEPS is just an acronym for sleep, think, eat, physical, and spirit. And what it is, it's just an accountability. It's in a way to see, are you doing what you need to be doing to feed body, mind, and spirit? If you think about people that are, counting their physical steps, right? They're using their watches to count their physical steps. They are they're closing their rings on their circle and on their watch to see if they're being physically active. It's like, okay, that's great, but what are you doing for your mind and spirit? And so I had developed this thing years ago, because I used to track a lot of stuff that I would do on my monthly calendar. I would just write, if I was exercising, I'd put my little E or whatever notation I would do to note that. If I wanted to get better in my golf game, if I wanted to get better in playing guitar, if I wanted to get better in being an artist, I knew I had to practice 2-3 times a week, better dancer. All this stuff. I wanted to read it, so I wanted to make sure I read enough books there, and did I read? And so I was just always on my calendar, write stuff out and everything. And at the end of the month, I can quickly see how good or how bad I was doing. And it was my accountability journal. And so it must have been just a couple of years ago that I was being interviewed for a magazine, Authority magazine. They had contacted me and said, Doc, we'd love to do an interview with you on health and fitness. Did it. About a year later, they came back and said, Doc, we would like to do one again on health and fitness, but we really want to go along that body, mind, spirit thing. I don't know if that's kind of within you, or is that going to be outside of what your realm is? So, I scratched my head about it, thought about it, went to sleep with it, slept on it and everything. And next morning, I shared with them what I'd been doing with 5 steps. And they just came back and said, this is the coolest thing I'd ever seen. There's nothing like this out there. It's a great accountability journey. And so it just gave me the confidence to come out there. And I guess part of my reservation, in all honesty, while I hadn't done anything with it, I was kind of split between, am I going to be talking about spirit, trying to get closer to him, Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior, or just okay, there could be some people that think of spirit just, my spirit. They're just, it's not the same thing. And, I want to capture the whole market. Say, well, no, let's just, and so when I shared it with Authority Magazine and they came back and said they really dug this thing, I thought, all right, maybe this is what I've been waiting for. Let me take it out. Let me go out there and share it. Unfortunately, right when the article came out, my mother had just passed away.
Oh,
so that created a challenge and everything. But months later, I said, let me sit there, and so I started to figure out what I wanted to do. Shared it with some people from church and some other friends of mine, just other what do you call them? Just not co-patrons, but just other amigos, for lack of a better word, that you trust in their opinion. And they all told me two things. They said, Len, this is really cool, but you need to make this an app, and my kids need to read this thing. Because it was just like 3 pages, just about describing each one of the steps. And so it helped give me the motivation. And again, as I said, it was just a simple way to track are you feeding your body? Are you feeding your mind? Are you feeding your spirit? And that was a big one for me, feeding the spirit, because for myself, coming from, I like to say I'm an athlete, from an athletic background and everything, I could always find ways to budget time to go exercise. But I always found a challenge, or found it easy to not get up every morning and read scripture, not go to bed at night and read scripture and everything. And I said, gosh, I'm doing real good at making my 6:30 gym workout or whatever I was doing, but I couldn't find time for that. And then I just started realizing, again, this was back in the 90s, right? So a little bit different. We didn't have phones back then, back in the 80s. We didn't have cell phones back then, too. But, nowadays it seems like, wow, it's so easy to work your spiritual muscles, because, yes, being in the Word is great, but you can also, fellowship, you can also attend service, stuff like that. But gosh, everybody has a phone in their pocket. You can just grab that thing. You can listen to a podcast. You can listen to a sermon. You can listen to the good music out there that's going to help inspire you, or just draw you closer back to center where you need to. And maybe that 1 minute, that one passage, that one phrase in the song is going to connect to you. But the more you do it, the better I think it's like exercise. The more reps you do, the more time you do, the better shape you're going to be in. And the same thing, just the more opportunity you work your spiritual muscles, the stronger you'll be when it's time for you when you need them for your support.
So how did you come upon the idea, of doing an app? I know you said your friends all said it should be an app, but what was the thought process behind turning it into more of an app feature?
That was a hard one, because I was kind of resistant to that, but they just said this would be so easy to do. Like, just instead of just with steps, you're basically supposed to shade in your steps. If you ate real good, if you ate good for the day, you don't have to eat perfect, but did you eat more good meals than bad at least? You shade in the E. Did you get physical? Shade in the P. Did you think better today? That's the T. Shade in the T. And they just were telling me, that's great and everything, but if you do it on an app, because everybody's carrying a phone with them and everybody uses it, but they can just touch it and shade in the footstep for them. And so I just started thinking about it more and more, and started, I'm a doctor, I'm not an engineer guy. So had to go seek out help and guidance and on how to make an app, what to do, what to add to it, how to make it, functional, this, that, and the other. We've kept on improving it. And then I think we're going to do a couple more, add some additional things to it as well. And I may, I'll ask the audience if they would like to be able to store pictures on there too, because, you can also, it's not just an app, you can just see your footsteps, but you can also put notations in there like a journal. So if you had today said, hey, I was interviewed today with Scott and everything, it went great. I had I worked out today. I so-and-so and so-and-so. So you can you can journal with it also. But it's kind of like, I think of like Seinfeld. If you're familiar with Jerry Seinfeld, he created a calendar years ago, and he always attributes that his success was to a calendar. He said that when he was a young comedian, he would say, if I want to be a good comedian, I need to write 10 jokes a day. And if he did, he would put an X on his calendar. And the next day, if he did, he put another X. And he got to the point to where I like seeing all the X's on the calendar. You don't like not seeing it. And that's kind of what happens when you shade in your footsteps. And one of my doctor friends, who's a psychologist, he goes, this is really powerful, and because when you see that, there's a sense of gratification that's going to further lift them up or give that endorphin hit that, hey, I am doing good, I am making progress. So I think this is really, really so we'll see what it does. If it helps people become healthier, great. If it helps them become more confident within themselves, fantastic. If it helps people become more spiritually aligned or get closer and draw near him, fantastic. And I hope it does that.
So when you think about folks, I think a lot of times when people think about those sorts of routines and doing things every day, and whether it's a morning routine, an evening routine, that kind of daily practices, and you're talking about with Jerry Seinfeld, he called that keeping the streak. And there's apps out there that do that in different ways. But I think one of the things that holds people back sometimes is just getting started. Doing the first, forget the streak, get 1X, It's
right.
Like, so for somebody that's feeling a little stuck in their life, a little overwhelmed, what advice do you have for them on how to kind of get started easy and get things moving forward?
Well, it's kind of like what I would tell my patients that would come in. They're trying to become healthy and fit. I go, I don't need you to run 5 miles tomorrow, but it would be nice if you just walked around the block. Okay, so let's get started there. Let's just get used to doing 5 minutes, and then you expand from there. And so with steps, I think part of it is I think there's so many people that I hear, that I would see, that I feel like they're caught in this vicious cycle. They're worried about this, they're worried about finance, they're worried about their relationships, about their kids, they're struggling with some health issues. Some of what they're doing is creating their body not to work as well as it could be. And everybody's, if you're looking for the magic genie to help you, this is not 5 steps isn't going to do it. It's like anything else. You need to take some steps yourself. And so if you can at least take account of yourself, and here's the analogy I like to share with people. Corporations, the way they track their successes, they'll track revenue, profits, and sales, and see if they're good. If they are, they'll get promoted and continue being the potential CEO. Whether we realize it or not, we are all the CEO of MMI, me, myself, and I. How do we track how well we are living our life and getting to where we want to go? And so, how are you feeding your body? How are you feeding your mind? How are you feeding your spirit? And so 5 steps a day, it's just a simple way to track. Like I said, in 2 minutes, you can just see how good you're doing or how bad you're doing. You don't have to share with anybody, but it's kind of like it says in Scripture, pity the man who only has one who's there by himself. But if he has somebody else to share this with, they might be, they're a little bit stronger with them. So hopefully somebody can start using it and say, gosh, and I say that because I know some people that are really great in their physical walk, but they have no spiritual connection. And just the vice versa, you have people that are really strong in their spiritual walk. And then again, that's when I have. But they lack anything in their physical walk. They're so dedicated to be in church, helping people in church, doing it in all the meetings, being the secretary of all the different groups that are going on. But they end up eating pizza every day, all their life and everything. And they wonder why they're 30, 40, 50 pounds overweight. And I say that because years ago, I was doing a lot of television and hosting a couple of different shows, and all of a sudden I was invited to, and I hosted a show on oneplace.com, and I think I may have been the first non-pastor on oneplace.com talking about health and fitness. And when I presented to them, I go, the reason why I would like to be part of your show or your service is because I think that, as I've learned, the Christian community, they are by and large one of the most unhealthiest group out there. And as I kept on reading more and more and more about doing my research, this is 20 years ago, people go to church and they're there in the evening and, they're ordering pizza because they're not going to be at home making dinner and they're rushing. And so sometimes they're not eating as well as they could be. And they're just eating some of the easy choices that we all say they're okay to have. I never take them out of my diet and everything, but it's having more of this and of the stuff that's not as nutritious for your body, the stuff that you can always say God made all of it and everything, but yeah, the fruits and the vegetables and the nuts and the seeds, that's more of what the human body is designed to be eating.
So I've got a few questions that I like to ask all of my guests, but before I ask you those, is there anything else about the 5 steps that you'd like to share?
Well, I just, if you get a chance, check it out. Like I said, if you're struggling with in any part of that vicious cycle where you're not as happy or content, or your career, your job, or whatever, maybe it is your health isn't where it's supposed to be. Maybe your life, like mine, struggled for several years, right? Wasn't there. My spiritual journey was just, I think 5 steps might be able to help you by just tracking how good you are feeding your body, mind, and spirit. And like my dad would always tell me, hey, you got to do the work, not me. So it's something you don't have to share with anybody. It's just a simple way. You can download it on your phone even if you're a teenager, but you can just look at it and see, hey, am I doing, by the end of the week, you can say, oh, wow, I did really good on my fitness stuff, but I only did one thing for my spiritual stuff. I only thought positively, one day, and never. And let me share this with Scott, because this is the one thing I think that's really harming our country, is that people are so distracted. There's so much noise coming into their ears all the time that they never get that quiet time to sit and think and reflect. And so, these cell phones, and I think the new law is now they're trying to restrict them in schools and whatnot. But when you can sit there and I watch my kids, if they're going to the bathroom, if they're going upstairs, or just walking from here to there, they have to grab their phone with them, and they need to kill that 30 seconds, 1 minute time to look at something. But in the olden days, which is really only 30 years ago, basically, when you didn't have all these distractions, you would sit here and that was the 1 or 2 or 3 minutes of silence, and you had a chance to really be with yourself, talk to yourself, and say, "Oh, yeah, I guess I haven't. I'm thinking. I'm not looking forward. I'm not seeing where I want to go in life. Where do I want to go in life?" And to as I always joke, everybody knows what the land of milk and honey is, right? We all know it's a biblical term, where God's land of milk and honey was. But I like to say that if you don't know where your land of milk and honey is, whatever that may be for you, whatever destination it is for you, not just spiritually, but whether in your career, in your family life, whatever your land of milk and honey is, if you don't know what it is, or you can't focus on what your land of milk and honey is, don't complain if you arrive at the land of heartaches and headaches. Figure out where you want to go. It takes some quiet time. It takes some internal thinking to, what do you want to be? What do you want to do? Where do you want to go? And once you figured out what it is, like a sailor, once you know where you're going, you can get there. When the wind's in your face, you still know where you're going. When the wind's at your back, you can really get there much quicker. And so I think that's one of the headaches that's out there. So hopefully 5 steps will help make you start realizing that it's important to find where you want to go with yourself and your life and everything.
So my brand is Inspired Stewardship, and I kind of run things through that lens of stewardship. And yet I've discovered that's one of those words that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So for you, when you hear the word stewardship, what does that word mean to you?
Stewardship, I think for me, hearing it, just trying to guide yourself and others. Trying to just pull them that way. And I think I've been a steward of trying to help people get healthy and fit for the last 30 years. And so, and I stayed in my lane, being, a nutritionist, strength coach, and all that stuff. But it was like, and whether maybe it's the right time, to sit there and start saying, okay, Len, let's start opening it up, and let's help people also realize that it's important to get that spiritual connection. Make sure that are they moving in the right direction. So if 5 steps can do anything, because I know there's a lot of people who are lost, looking, and been let down in their spiritual walk. And so if 5 steps can help you start looking, reading. I mean, gosh, I've gone cover to cover in 5 different Bibles in the last 30 years or so, just reading, just learning more, understanding more, and it's guided me. And so if what what little knowledge I have. But hopefully the 5 steps could just help them start tracking what they're doing for themselves and everything. And if it starts moving them closer, because you never know what it's going to be when whatever they read, it's going to inspire them that I need to draw closer to him. But you have to at least start moving in that direction a little bit. And sometimes a lot of people just, the cat videos on their phone is enough to distract them for the longest period of time. And the Xbox videos, I'll say that too, for males and females.
So this is my favorite question that I like to ask everybody. Imagine for a moment that I could invent this magic machine. And with this machine, I was able to take you from where you are today and transport you into the future, maybe 150, maybe 250 years. And through the power of this machine, you were able to look back and see your entire life, see all of the ripples, all of the connections, all of the impacts you've left. What impact do you hope you've had in the world?
Gosh, I would hope that I can be a inspiration to not just my family, but to others around me. I hope they can say, wow, that was someone who did it right, who was doing the thing that you're supposed to be doing. And this is why we still remember him. So if I can make an impression on most importantly, my children and everything, my kids and everything. But if that can go to my children's children, like I said in Scripture, that would be fantastic. That would be that's one of my little goals in life too.
So what's on the roadmap? What's on your roadmap as you continue to close out this year and start next year strong?
Continue doing this, just trying to share the word and everything. I have my little desires of wanting to take this. I don't want to be, well, I shouldn't say it that way. I know we all know Billy Graham did a great job of bringing more and more people to know him and everything. And if I can be just a little bit of the seasoning that can help in that journey for those who don't know him. And if health and fitness is a way to first open the eyes for some people, hopefully that can be the door opener for me in that way.
Awesome. So you can find out more about Dr. Len Lopez over at drlenlopez.com. And you can find the 5 steps information at drlenlopez.com. 5 steps a day. Of course, I'll have a link to that over in the show notes as well. Dr. Len, anything else you'd like to share with the listener?
No, just thank you for what you're doing, Scott. I think I like your show, and I like the format of how your show goes, and just, blessings to you for all that you're doing to help bring more good information to people that are everybody's looking for some kind of help or some kind of answers out there. So thanks for what you're doing.
Thank you. Thanks so much for listening to the Inspired Stewardship podcast. As a subscriber and listener, we challenge you to not just sit back and passively listen, but act on what you've heard and find a way to live your calling. If you enjoyed this episode, please do us a favor. Go over to inspiredstewardship.com/iTunes rate, all one word, iTunes rate. It'll take you through how to leave a rating and review and how to make sure you're subscribed to the podcast so that you can get every episode as it comes out in your feed. Until next time, invest your time, your talent, and your treasures. Develop your influence and impact the world.